This is your Stage 25 review. Here's a guide of some of the things that you're going to be looking at on your test. You're going to have verb and participle recognition. Let's start off with that. We'll start off with participles. Let's talk about the present active participle, that principal parts amo, amare, amawi, and amatis. If it's present, I'm going to start off with the present stem, which is amare. I'm going to take off that are or re. And that leaves me with a ma, and then I'm going to add one of these endings over here on the right, the ens, entis endings. If I want it to be nominative, I would choose a mons. If I want it to be genitive, then I would put an entis on there, so to have a montis. Both of those are present active participles. If I wanted it to be dative, I would choose a monti. If I wanted it to be accusative, I would choose a montem. They all have those NTs in them. They do change based off of their case and number, though. When I'm looking for a perfect passive participle, I'm going to start with my perfect passive stem, which is a modus. Then I'm going to use my first and second declension endings to change it. Right now it's nominative and singular. If I want to change that nominative singular masculine to a nominative singular feminine, I just add the A. If I wanted to change it to a nominative masculine plural, I would add this I. So I can change the gender and the case by giving it those endings. Now don't forget that you also have that second declension neuter rule. And that says that the nominative and the accusative have to be the same and the neuter plurals end in A. So if I wanted to make a matis neuter and plural, nominative, neuter, and plural, I would have a mata. And that is perfect passive participle. If I wanted it to be nominative and singular, I would add a matum, etc. So what about the perfect active participle? Which part do I use? Well, I can't use every word as a perfect active participle. As a matter of fact, if it has principal parts like this one, if it has amo, amari, amawi, and amatis, it's not going to have a perfect active participle. I have to have a word like that has principal parts like egredior, egredi, and egressus. When I get those principal parts, I can take a word like egressus and turn it into a perfect active participle. We call those deponents. Those shouldn't be new to us. On your test, you're going to get words that look like this, and you're going to have to be able to look at those words and say, oh, there's that NT, must be present active. Here's more of those NTs. They look different. They have different endings on them. That can change the case and the number and the gender of the word. It is a participle, so it will change. So the endings will change, that NT will not change. On the right-hand side, however, you don't really get an NT or anything that signifies it. It's just the fourth principal part. Dokeo, dokera, dokui. Doctus is our fourth principal part, but here we have it as a dative or ablative singular. That's why the O is there. We have facio, facra, feci, factus. This time I have made it either accusative singular or neuter. And I have coptorum, which comes from copio, copra, kepi, coptus. Again, this is the fourth principal part, and it's been changed. These are perfect passive participles. Present active and perfect passive participles. Now, we do have a perfect active. And those perfect active comes from words like this, progressi, secutus, and adeptum. Those are our deponents. So make sure that you can identify the types of participles. You're going to get a word, and it's going to say, well, is this present active? Is it perfect passive? And you're going to have to decide. Next, this test really asks you to define the difference between indicative and subjunctive moods and active and passive voices. So I'm going to go over each one of those for verb recognition. Let's start off with verb recognition in the indicative. I put up here two verbs, amo and duco, so I can show you how both of them act. Whenever I'm dealing with recognition, I have to ask myself tense as well, present, imperfect, perfect, or pluperfect. Remember that the present and imperfect are part of the present system. So I would start with the present stem, in this case amare. Then I ask myself, does it have a marker? Take off that RE. Does it have a marker or a clue? The answer is no. So all I do is I give it an ending. In this case, if I just give it a T, I would have he loves. Now, if I move it down here to the imperfect, I'm still using the same stem. Does it have a marker? Yes, it does. We're going to use BA here to create the imperfect, and then again, I'm going to add one of those personal endings. One of these red personal endings can be added to the present system to give it a different person. If it's an O or an M, it's first person, S second, T third, moose first person plural, T second person plural, and T third person and plural. Now when I'm dealing with the perfect, I want to start off with the perfect stem. If it's perfect and active, we're going to start off with a Maui. I'm going to take off that I, that gives me the start of my stem. And then I add, for the perfect, I'm going to add these green ones. So I could add the it over here from the green. E is the it, emus, istis, and a runt is unique to the perfect tense. Does it have a marker? No, it does have a clue. That V would be a clue. Okay, if I'm still going to use the perfect stem for pluperfect. Does it have a marker? Yes, it does. ERA. And then I can add, not the greens, because the greens are unique to the perfect tense only. I'm going back to the reds. So I give it that third person singular look. Verb recognition is all about identifying the marker, identifying the clues, and most importantly, identifying the stem that I have to use. Now these are actives. How would I make the passives? I'm going to add some purples down here, and these endings are unique to the present system. So I'm still going to start off with my present stem, amare. I'm going to take off that RE, and now I can add a purple ending to make it passive, amator. That is present passive. If I go down to the imperfect, does the imperfect have a marker? Yes. I'm going to add BA. And again, if I want to make it passive, I'm going to use one of those purple passive endings. Now these passive endings here, these purple ones, only belong to the present system. If I want to make the perfect system, then I have to go to the perfect stem, which is amatus. Okay? Does the perfect stem use any of these endings? No, it uses a form of sum. Now these gray words here, again, just like the green ones, they are unique to the perfect system only. If I take amatus, my perfect stem, and I add est, then I'm going to get the perfect passive. Okay, if I move it down here to amatus, does the pluperfect have, if I move amatus down to the pluperfect, does it have a marker? Yes, ERA, and then I would just add my ending to get amatus erat. So the real key to this is understanding which ones are unique to certain tenses. For example, sumes, est, sumus estis, and sunt, these are unique to the perfect passive. We'll find them anywhere else. The emus, istis, istis, et, and erunt are unique to the perfect and active. These armor, ris, mini, tur, and untur are unique to the present system passive voice. The rest of them are going to use these red guys, ost, mus, tis, and unt. We have our markers ba and ara, and that's it. Those are all indicatives. Fix that. Okay, so the indicative mood, we're done. How do I determine the subjunctive mood? Well, the subjunctive mood for the imperfect and pluperfect is all about identifying the infinitive. The present infinitive comes straight from that second principal part, amare. To create the perfect infinitive, I'm going to have to go to the third principal part, like dukes or amawi. I could use amawi as well. I'm going to take off that I, and I'm going to add my ISSE. These are my two infinitives. And the reason that they are important is because all I have to do is put these guys down here and add an ending. By doing this, I create my subjunctive. My imperfect subjunctive is the present infinitive amare plus an ending. My pluperfect subjunctive is my perfect infinitive, perfect active infinitive, plus a T. So if you can identify infinitives, the subjunctive shouldn't be difficult at all. Now you do have irregulars. Of course, our favorite irregular is the word sum. In the present tense, you're going to have sum, ace, est, sumus, estis, and sunt. Now we're going to use ERA for the imperfect, and we're going to add an ending. So aram, aras, arat, aramus, aratus, and arant. The present system of sum acts just like that. However, if I want to go to the perfect, we do what we did earlier. We're going to take fui, that's the perfect sim, that third principal part. We're going to take off that I. And for the perfect, remember, these green guys right here are all unique to the perfect tense only. Okay, if I go pluperfect, I'm still going to use that same stem, foo. Pluperfect uses ERA as a marker, and then I'm adding my ending, fuerat. That is the pluperfect active of soon. So really, if you can remember to use sumes s, sumus s, and sunt for the present, and use the ERA for the imperfect, then the pluperfect and perfect are used just like we did with the other ones, that third principal part, and adding what we normally would add. So if that's the case, Coach Tremble, when I make the sum subjunctive, the imperfect is going to use essa. I'm going to use fui to create that perfect stem by adding isse. Now I have two infinitives. Now all I have to do, you told me, is add an ending, and I get the subjunctives of sum, and that's it. Imperfect is esset, pluperfect is fuesset. So find those infinitives, and you should be good. That brings us to this right here. There are 12 words here, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 12 words here. And each one of them is a tense, a mood, and a voice. Some of them are participles, some of them are regular verbs. Amatus, ducentis, aggresso, those are participles. What kind? The rest of these are all verbs. What kind of verbs are they? Can you identify the person, the number, the tense, the mood, and the voice? That's important on your test, especially the tense, the mood, and the voice. If you don't know those, you're in trouble. So we start off, I'm going to let you look at these and see if you can tell me what they are. Amatus, that's a perfect passive participle. Ducentis, present, active participle. Egresso, that's one of our deponents, so it's a perfect active participle. Fuissem. Fuissem is pluperfect active subjunctive. Audit, present active indicative. Duxit, perfect active indicative. Ducaris, imperfect active subjunctive. Feceramus, pluperfect active indicative. Estis, present active indicative. Erat, imperfect active indicative. Amabat, imperfect active indicative. Esset, imperfect active subjunctive. Now how can I tell? Some of them there really isn't anything to look at. I mean, with amatus, I got nothing. If I don't know that's a fourth principal part, I'm not going to get that. The nt in ducentis is a clue that that's present. Aggresso, nothing to help me. This ism right here, this esse plus an ending, that's pluperfect subjunctive. No marker, no clue, nothing for audit, so that's present. I've got a marker here with that suv or x. This time I have an x. So I have a marker that's perfect. This ere, are. So in other words, that infinitive inside the word tells me I'm imperfect subjunctive. Era, I am pluperfect and indicative. Estis, no marker, no clue, that's present. Era, but it's a form of sum, so it's not pluperfect, it is imperfect and indicative. Ba, that signifies the imperfect as well. And here I have the infinitive, essa, plus a t, imperfect subjunctive. So you do have some ways of looking at these and kind of helping you out if you don't know the parts. But you can see, if you don't know the parts, you're going to struggle a little bit. A couple of random grammars that you're going to end up with. Genitive of description. You have a man of great prudence. You're going to get that genitive describing man. The use of quod. Two ways to use it. You can use it in the first way here. Domen venit quod festus erat. He came. You need a long mark over that. He came home because he was tired. That's the because one. I know that. There's nothing backwards. There's nothing back here that's neuter for it to modify. The next one, soxum quod yecit me verberawit. The rock which he threw hit me. In this case, I do have something that's neuter, which is soxum, the rock. I do have something to neuter for it to modify that is neuter. So I have a relative, which. So two ways to use it, because and which. Now don't rely on these commas. Latin is notorious for being able to move words around. So if I move this quod to here and win it to the end, and I make this a comma and I put a comma here, it's still because. There's nothing back here for it to modify that is neuter. So it's still, he came home because he was tired. Just because it moved a little bit doesn't mean it changed how it's being used. Next is something that you guys struggled a little bit with on the last test, noun and adjective agreement. Here are all of the adjective endings for the first, the second, and the third declension adjectives. If I have a noun like puella, ag, what would I put at the end of it? Well, the first thing I have to ask myself is what conjugate or what declension is agra? I know that it's first and second, so I identify puella as nominative, singular, and feminine. I come up here and I see this nominative singular ending right here, a, and I'm going to drop that with agra. Next, I have coquum calidus. I'm missing an ending here. I know that calidus is a first or a second. Coquum, that looks like accusative to me. Oh, sorry. That looks accusative singular to me, so I'm going to give it that un. I know that coquus is a second declension noun, so I'm going to give it a second declension adjective ending because calidus belongs to the second declension adjective. Here I have tempori and brev, blank. Brevis is a third declension adjective. Tempori is dative and singular, so I'm going to give it this dative, singular, third declension ending brevi. However, sometimes you end up with words like puero that are second declension and fortis, which is third declension adjective. I cannot give one of these endings of the second declension to fortis because fortis is a third declension adjective. But what I do need to ask myself is what is the case number and gender of puero? If I decide that it is dative or ablative, then I would choose the dative or ablative ending from the third declension because fortis is third declension. So adjectives have to agree in case number and gender. But like this one, puero forti, they don't have to have the same declension. That means that you could end up with puero forti. Next we have translating the subjunctive. Now we've been working on this for a couple of weeks, so it shouldn't be too difficult for us. We have the imperfect subjunctive is going to be translated as the same time as the main verb. The pluperfect is going to be translated as before. So when I look at these two sentences, I have subito quintus memenit, ubi poculum vidicit. I look at this guy memenit. I know that that is perfect. I look at vidicit. So the main action is happening in the past. I have vidicit. It is the pluperfect subjunctive, so I need to translate this as before the perfect. This right here, this right here is perfect. So I need to make sure that this is before the perfect. I'm going to translate that as had seen. So suddenly Quintus remembered where he had seen the cup. On the next one, I read through and I get to rogabat, salus, milites, rogabat, ubi quintus esset. Rogabat's my main verb. It's in the imperfect tense. It's in the past. I look over here at esset. That is an imperfect subjunctive. I'm going to translate it as the same time. So Saulius asked the soldier where Quintus was. Same time. Now, what if I switch these two verbs? Would it change? If I put esset up here and vidicit down here, the translations are probably going to be the same. Suddenly, Quintus remembered where the cup was. And then Saulius asked the soldier where Quintus had seen him. It's all going to come down to whether or not you recognize that isse and whether you recognize that infinitive essa to determine whether or not it's imperfect or pluperfect. There are a lot of these on the test where you're going to have to determine whether to translate it as the same time or before. If it is pluperfect, isse, it happens before the main verb. If it is imperfect, esse is not always going to be the case. It could be something like amare, anything that has that infinitive in it plus the ending. If it's imperfect, it's translated as the same time. Your character descriptions are going to include Werbix, Strythio, Modestus, Valerius, Urania, Coquus, Optio, Captilius, it should be Captivus, Miles, Centuria. So what did each of these characters do within the stories that we read? So remembering what they did, Versibrix, of course, he is the son of the prince of the Decian glory. Strythio, of course, Modestus and Strythio. Strythio is waiting for Modestus to bring him food, and Strythio, of course, doesn't get any food, and Modestus, well, he gets a lot of the food since he ate all of it. Modestus, of course, when he shows up back up, he's upset. He thinks Strythio is dead, and he's lost his best friend. He loved him like a brother. Valerius. Valerius is a centurion of the legion that they're in, the second legion. The Arania is a spider that ran across Modestus's face. Coquus is, of course, he's a cook. He's the guy that Modestus owes money to. Optio, he is second command. He's the guy giving out orders to Captilus. That actually is Strithio. Whenever Modestus comes back, he doesn't remember that, or he doesn't recognize Strithio, and he starts beating him up. The Miles is actually Versabrix in one of the stories. They think he's a Miles just kind of hanging around the campsite. Centurio, he's head of everything. He's the one that recognizes Versabrix and orders him to be led into jail. He's also the one at the end that Modestus and Strithio are trying to avoid, so they take Sawius to the granary instead. It'd be very prudent to go back and look at those stories and kind of try to remember what happened in those stories for these character descriptions. They probably are the most difficult part of the test. They have some quotes in them, and then they have some descriptions. Like the one Captilus is tough because you might not remember, oh wait, that was Strithio whenever he was in the cell and Modestus had come back. So there's some tough ones in there. And now it's time for the cultural section. How did the Romans ensure that the soldiers were viable candidates? Well, they had an interview. Who wrote the guideline for selecting the troops? Vegetius. What were collegii? They were soldiers' sandals, if you remember. Caligula, one of the awful people in ancient Rome, was named after the collegii. His name was Little Sandals, or Little Soldier Boots. How would soldiers make more money? Only through promotion. Did they receive hazard pay? No, they did not. They did not receive anything. What consumed most of the soldiers' time? They built roads and bridges, etc. What did the new recruits undergo? Physicals. They made sure that they had teeth. If you didn't have no teeth, you couldn't be in no Roman army. What was the first part of training? They went through physical fitness, something that I don't believe I could make it through. What was the second part of the training? Weaponry and javelin throwing. Sounds fun. Third part, open combat. We're out in the middle of the woods and we're fighting and we're beating each other up in open combat. What was the favorite pastime of the legionary soldier? They wanted to get free time and they wanted to leave. Duh. How might one describe a Roman legion? It was like a mini army within itself. How much did a soldier earn during the mission train? Well, they didn't earn very much before, but he upped it to 300 denarii per year. Misspelled denarii. Nice, Mr. Travel. What deduction came from the soldier's pay? These guys had to pay for everything. They had to pay for the food, for the clothing, for the equipment, everything. It was not fair. What happened to javelins after they were thrown into battle? They were discarded or broken. They were designed so that if you threw them and you hit someone, they would break and you would leave them on the battlefield. It was also awesome because if you did throw it, no one could throw it back at you because it broke. What did the soldiers receive after they were discharged? Land, or 3,000 denarii. Trammel, smelled it right. For how long did a soldier enlist? 25 years of your life were gone. What were the most important auxiliary groups? That would be the cavalry. You definitely wanted people with horses to run over the people that were walking if you were in trouble. So you would just get on your horse and you would ride over the opposing foot soldiers and just run them over and say, "Oop, what was that? A speed bump?" Nope. It was it was one of those British guys. Should have got out of the way. How far could soldiers march in a day? 25 miles. So these guys basically every day walked a marathon. I think that after they did that, they got one of those. Well, what happened was after that they all got up early every once in a while, and they would go an extra 1.2 miles so that they could get one of those little stickers on the back that said 26.2. Now, if you were a sickly guy and you only made it half the day, you would put 13.1 on the back of your shirt. Cultural terms. Exercitus is an army. Inquisitio would have been a board of inquiry. Scutum would have been a shield. Cingulum were military belt. Lorica segmentate were, that was body armor. Gladius was a sword. Pilum was a javelin. Castra were camps. Fugio was a small dagger. Latin words that we need to be aware of. Say calare, to hide. Esset, that's the imperfect subjunctive of sum. Hinc is here. Claudera is to shut. Bueno is a penalty. Nemo, no one. Scalestus is wicked. Incipera is to begin. Aliquis is someone. Bonus is good. Decenera, stop. Apere is to open. Premium is a price. Cur is why. Quis is who. Quo is where. Quomodo is how. And ubi is where. Make sure those last ones, the cur, quis, quo, quomodo, and ubi, you're aware of, because those are how those indirect questions are going to be introduced within a sentence. Next, we have the English words. To collide is to harm by coming together with like a violent impact. You collide with someone. Extraneous is coming with something that's not essential. Captivity is the state of obviously being a prisoner or being captured. Deign is to condescend, to give, or to grant as being worthy. Cogit is a forcefully convincing, immortalize, to make something, I guess, godlike. Inexplicable is unable to explain. Latent refers to something that happens that wasn't expected. A latent effect would be one that's hidden, that comes from latio, to hide, something that's hidden, laid aside. Aperture is an opening. Did I spell that right? I guess I did. Hesitancy is the state of being slow to act. Nomenclature, that's what we do in science whenever we are going to name something. Penitentiary, well, that's some place that we hold prisoners. Immemorial is reaching beyond the limits. Here we go.
Immemorial. Immemorial.
That's how you say that word. And that's something that basically is it goes beyond time and tradition. Suave is smoothly gracious, and testimony is something that we give in court. It's usually given under oath of some kind. It's a promise. That's it for your review. Good luck.